With the campaign just days away.
The clock is ticking.
Is there any more clarity?
Here we are on Monday, still no election date locked in.
I heard Anthony Albanese say, call the election now.
Enough of the pantomime. Call the election.
Set to go.
Look at that.
Even though it hasn't officially been called, the election campaign is effectively underway.
Please welcome Anthony Albanese.
The leaders of the major parties are meeting and greeting locals in key seats and taking part in the typical made-for-TV stunts.
Got any tips for getting off the bottom there, bloke?
But the only man with the power to formally fire the starting gun is still waiting for the right moment, after suddenly finding himself under attack from some in his own side.
We just have to call this out for what it is. It is a political hit by the Prime Minister's enemies on the eve of a campaign.
Morrison might profess to be Christian, but there was nothing Christian about what was done to Michael Toke.
Concetta Fierravanti-Wells is one of the PM's chief internal enemies at the moment. After the right-wing Liberal lost pre-selection, she last week let fly, attacking Mr Morrison's character and hinting at fresh allegations about how he won pre-selection for his safe Sydney seat of Cook back in 2007.
I'm advised that there are several statutory declarations to attest to racial comments made by Morrison at the time that we can't have a Lebanese person in Cook.
In the initial pre-selection ballot 15 years ago, Scott Morrison got just 8 out of 152 votes, and the rights-preferred candidate Michael Toke triumphed. However, immediately afterwards, there was a bruising, lengthy internal campaign to overturn the result, and ultimately, Mr Morrison was selected as the Liberal Party candidate. Over the weekend, media outlets, including 730, obtained the statements Senator Fierravanti-Wells was referring to. They were signed in 2016. In one, Mr Toke accuses Mr Morrison of urging pre-selectors not to vote for him because his family heritage was Lebanese, and suggesting that a candidate of Lebanese heritage could not hold the seat of Cook, especially after the Cronulla riots. He also alleges Mr Morrison told others he was being investigated for criminal and immoral activities, and states there was a strong rumour that I was actually a Muslim. 6 years on, Mr Toke, who is a Catholic Maronite, is standing by those comments.
Absolutely, yes.
And what do you make of the Prime Minister's denial?
Not very credible.
Do you think he's lying?
I think it's pretty obvious he is.
Do you think the Prime Minister's racist?
Well, it's hard not to, isn't it?
Well, all I can say is that it's just simply untrue. And these are quite malicious and bitter slurs, which are deeply offensive. And I reject them out absolutely.
In recent days, the government has urged journalists to put the allegations to Lebanese community leaders who support the Prime Minister.
So that is totally out of character for someone that I got to know all these years. It definitely does not stick with me.
While Bruce Baird, Mr Morrison's predecessor in the seat of Cook, rejects suggestions racial vilification played a key role in the pre-selection process.
Bear in mind that there are other strong candidates. I mean, we had Paul Fletcher, who's now Minister for Communications and Infrastructure, Mark Speakman, who's Attorney General, David Coleman, who is Immigration Minister, and Scott Morrison, who I knew quite well because he worked for me for 2 years.
But it's not the complex details of an old pre-selection that's really worrying the Prime Minister's team. It's that just weeks before Scott Morrison faces voters, there are some in his own party prepared to publicly deliver blunt character assessments. Mr Toke has indicated that he plans to speak out again this week. That is likely to only add to the damage for Mr Morrison. Both his predecessor, Malcolm Turnbull, and the French president have already publicly accused him of lying.
I don't think I know.
Oh, he's lied to me on many occasions.
While the Deputy PM, who last year called Scott Morrison a liar and a hypocrite in a text message, was today among the senior ministers insisting that voters should trust him.
Well, the first thing is, what people say publicly and what people say in messages that should be kept private, because I never actually sent to the person who discloses them, is something completely different. But what we have seen is the Lebanese community have come out and backed Mr Morrison.
This saga has also triggered memories about a contentious 2010 shadow cabinet meeting. Scott Morrison was accused of suggesting the coalition exploit anti-Muslim sentiment, a claim he has publicly denied.
So when you raised those issues in that meeting, what did you say about them?
Well, I was concerned that we needed to address them, which is what I've been doing inside and outside of the Parliament for the last 10 years of my life.
Address those concerns?
Yes, to lower them.
A lot of the bad blood in the Liberal Party has surfaced now because of a broader dispute in New South Wales about the way some candidates for the coming election have been handpicked by a panel featuring the PM and the state premier, instead of facing a ballot of local rank and file branch members. Some within the party are asking why pre-selections weren't finalised months ago, instead of now on the eve of an election.
I've been here before.
The Labor Party can hardly believe its luck. It wants to campaign as much as possible on Scott Morrison's character.
You look much nicer in reality than what you do.
Oh, actually good.
The PM's team is now desperate to shift the debate back to its budget measures before Mr Morrison heads to see the Governor-General in a few days' time and the campaign formally begins.
7:30's chief political correspondent Laura Tingle's with me in Sydney. Laura, as we've just seen in James Glenday's package, a lot of the bad blood in New South Wales goes to an ongoing pre-selection battle. How unusual is it to have that unresolved when an election is due any tick of the clock?
Well, I can't ever remember anything like this and on a scale like this, Lee, in all the time I've been reporting politics. It's not. We've got 3 pre-selections of sitting members, including 2 ministers under question in a court case, and we've got 9 pre-selections announced on the weekend. Now, The Guardian is reporting that those 9 pre-selections may be subject to further legal challenge by somebody within the Liberal Party in the next few days. The 3 pre-selections that were lined up by Scott Morrison and Dominic Perrottet in a federal intervention about a week ago are due for judgment in the Court of Appeal tomorrow. So this is creating all sorts of uncertainty. Obviously, for the Liberal Party, it means that they don't have people on the ground campaigning with only a week to go at best until the election's called. And of course, they can't call the election when they don't have candidates. So it's really quite chaotic.
So there's plenty of brawling about people trying to get into the parliament or stay in the parliament, but there is one person desperate to get out of a parliament.
That's right. The Tasmanian Premier, Peter Gutwein, has announced today that he's going to leave politics. Now, he was hospitalised last year. I think the interesting thing about this is the first time we've seen one of our national leaders or state leaders really succumbing, if you like, to the pressures of the last few years of the pandemic. And this is what he was essentially saying was what had happened to him, that he just couldn't keep going anymore and giving that 110% that you needed under the pressure of the sorts of things we've had, like the pandemic in the last couple of years.
Laura, just finally, we saw Elias Kluwer's story earlier on the Lismore floods. There's more assistance going there too?
There is more assistance, but once again, it's this sort of mystifying question, Lee, about where is the federal government. The New South Wales government has announced today it's got this package of $20,000 of assistance for people who have lost a lot of their possessions and trying to fix their houses up who aren't insured. But it's not quite enough, and both the local member, Janelle Saffin, has questioned where the federal government is, and when asked about this today and what he knew about it, the New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet wasn't really sure whether the federal government would also be coming to the party. One of those mysteries of the current times.
Laura Tingle, thank you very much.
Thanks, Lee.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 7:30's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.